Hello and welcome to the first official episode of the Right Wing Report. My name is JP, and today I'm going to be telling you a story about the time I made my own hurt feelings report based on a design I saw online, and I got into quite the confrontation about it and eventually involved the administration. So without further ado, this is the Right Wing Report. Alright, let's get started. So this is a personal story. This is something that actually happened to me. As I stated before, I made my own hurt feelings report based on a design I saw online. I actually saw an article, I think it circulated around social media, that says Delaware parents angry after school accidentally sends out hurt feelings report they say mocks bullying. And for those of you who are unfamiliar with this, it's like hurt feelings report. It's like, oh, why are you whining about something like this? So I have my own hurt feelings report here, as you can see. I'm going to go ahead and put it on the screen so you can see it a lot better. Alright, so that panned down kind of quick, so I'm going to read some of the reasons for hurt feelings that I put on here, just so you can get an idea of what these people were getting offended by. So I'm thin-skinned, I'm a wimp, I want my mommy. President Trump, I put president on there because it's a couple days away. This was a while ago, but it was after he got elected. President-elect would be a more appropriate term, but whatever. Someone did not agree with me, Confederate flag, rich people, it was too hot, it was too cold, someone used logic, someone told me my feelings didn't matter, and I put that on. Those of us who know Ben Shapiro know that facts don't care about your feelings, and that has kind of become a catchphrase that I enjoy using. Large dogs, the patriarchy. Oh, the large dog is a reference to Chancellor Angela Merkel of Germany. When she had a meeting with Vladimir Putin, he brought his large dog, and she got scared, and then everyone said, "Oh, that's so mean, Putin, why'd you do that?" And he was like, "Oh, I didn't do it on purpose." Anyway, I digress. Republicans, the military. I put my own name on here. I really don't think that you should not put your name to something, that you should kind of own up to it. And I wasn't worried because there's a Supreme Court decision about free speech in schools that protects me, and I'll talk more about that later. So anyway, I had this hurt feelings report. I gave it to my friends. I shared it with a lot of people on Google Drive. It actually became kind of a well-known thing. I mean, I go to a very big school, so not everybody knows about it, but a lot of people did. And eventually, some teachers had gotten it. My stats teacher actually wanted me to make one for her that was, instead of, the political hurt feelings, it's like, I actually had to do my problem set, or, I didn't understand a concept after it was explained 6 times, or I got a bad grade on a test, something like that, or I can't exempt my exams, stuff like that. So already there's teachers, there's students that do appreciate this. But I was in ceramics, and I'm in ceramics because I have to take a fine art. I don't think that needs too much explanation. The best thing I did in there was make a Donald Trump sculpture, but that's not important for the sake of this video. So these people got offended by the hurt feelings report, and I say these people, it was a ceramics teacher, and then there was like an assistant, like a special education assistant teacher in there for one of my classmates. Well, she got offended, and basically they confronted me and said, "Did you make this?" I said, "Well, yeah, my name's on it," like I said before. And they were like, "Well, don't you think this is bad?" And I'm like, "No, I don't think there's any problem with this." And they're just like, "Well, we're just trying to help you, and our jobs as teachers is to show you what's right and wrong, and this is wrong, and people could get offended by this." I understand people can get offended by this. They have been offended by this, and my response is to give them one. But anyway, so this kind of went back and forth, and I don't really need to go over the conversation. It was a boring conversation anyway. But afterwards, one of the teachers, the special ed teacher, said, "Well, I'm going to take this to the administration because you could get in trouble for this. I want to make sure you're okay." So, well, why are you taking it to the administration if you don't want me to get in trouble? Whatever. I was fine. But after I told my dad about this, and he's kind of, well, he wrote an email to the 2 teachers, and I'm going to read it to you, and you can kind of understand how this escalated just a little bit. Alright, so I'm going to go ahead and read the email that my dad sent to them. I'm reading off of a laptop. It's kind of long, so I apologize for looking down, but here goes. "Evidently, you confronted my son today regarding a First Amendment issue. Perhaps I heard it wrong, but what I gathered is that you targeted him with threats of force and discipline because you did not like a piece of political satire he had expressed. He had not even expressed the satire to you, but to friends, and you inserted yourself into the exchange. Or perhaps he was targeted for his beliefs in general. I also understand that you asserted that it was your responsibility to teach him your values." He has that in caps there. "Is this true, or do I have the facts incorrect? I would love to hear your version. Based on your reaction, I suspect we have different values. In my family, we teach traditional American values. What is your duty when a parent shares different values and beliefs?" I find it chilling that in America, someone would use their position of authority to threaten someone to conform to their political views, especially when that person is a 17-year-old boy. The concept of education I am accustomed to is free thought. The Jesuits taught us to question all things, and in the military community, we always appoint someone in our planning sessions to put forth opposing views to avoid groupthink. I can think of nothing more frightening and dangerous than stifling free speech among students. Or as Ronald Reagan stated, freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it to our children in the bloodstream. It must be fought for, protected, and handed on for them to do the same. I love that quote. I read the piece in question titled Hurt Feelings Report, ... LOL, this is my dad's here, guys, LOL, and found it completely G-rated and inoffensive. There was no vulgar language, threats, or anything of the nature. I can't imagine what legal grounds you would use to discipline my student based on this paper. I actually brought the form to work and shared it with coworkers because it was amusing. You see, it is in the format of a government form. Perhaps you don't recognize the format if you have never served your country. Having worked in the U.S. intelligence community for nearly 3 decades, I found this form mildly amusing. Perhaps academia lacks the sense of humor U.S. Marines have, but we are all protected by the same Constitution and its Bill of Rights regardless of our individual levity. Ironically, your inappropriate reaction is the exact target of the farce. The greatest cancer facing our country intellectually is the neo-totalitarian belief that certain approved emotions can be used to deny others their constitutional rights. The joke is on you, literally. If you would like to file your hurt feelings report with me, an adult, feel free. If you are taking out your frustrations from the recent election, leave my son out of it. Perhaps we could have a sit-down, beer diplomacy, the way Mr. Obama likes to smooth things out, and you can come to understand the Constitution that I have professionally taken an oath 8 times to uphold and defend, and I can come to understand your hurt feelings. Regardless, you would be ill-advised to threaten my son. I trust he will be treated with fairness, and your personal prejudices will not influence his grading and treatment. If you have an actual discipline issue arise, I would certainly help you address that. As he is a senior in high school and honors and AP courses, multiple extracurricular activities with no disciplinary actions, your assessment would certainly be an anomaly. I look forward to hearing your explanation. Semper Fidelis, Jeff. Alright, so there you can see kind of the nature of the household I was brought up in, and also what was said to the teachers. So the story isn't too long after that. It did escalate a little bit because the next day the teacher who had the report that she took to the administration said, so I took this to the principal, and I was like, all right. She goes, well, he said that you were completely within your rights. So, all right, that's what I thought. And I was really tempted to ask for an apology or something. I said, all right, cool. And I was about to walk away, and she goes, well, you can have this back. And I said, nah, you keep it, and just walked away. And I thought that was pretty decent. But I would like to take a minute, I think that's about the end of the story, other than the fact that my dad eventually talked to the principal and found out it was completely okay, just that he had the principal said this teacher was being overzealous in their prosecution of what they saw as offensive material. But I would like to take a minute, because I think this is kind of something that is applicable to anybody who may be watching this. Obviously, we have some kind of shared interest in conservatism and in politics, and I'd like to bring up a Supreme Court decision that does protect your rights to free speech in school. Alright, so now I'm going to talk about the Supreme Court decision that made it so that I do have this right to exercise free speech in a public school. So as many of you may know, in a public school, a lot of the protections under the Constitution are not established the same way. For example, if the administration or any kind of police officer has any reason to believe that you have drugs on school grounds, then they can search you. So you waive your right to be secure in your persons from unreasonable search and seizure. But on a campus, you do have your right to free speech. And the reason is a Supreme Court case called Tinker versus Des Moines Independent Community School District. And this was actually during the Vietnam War. And so the interesting thing is I may not actually agree with the idea of these people in Tinker. Basically, it was during the Vietnam War, and they wanted to wear black armbands. I mean, this is pretty famous, black armbands in protest of the Vietnam War. They wanted a ceasefire. Now, whatever your feelings on the Vietnam War are, this is a free speech issue. I would support these people's right to protest. And so the school tried to make them stop because they said it was disruptive, but they were just wearing black armbands. And so eventually it made its way all the way up to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court said as long as it's not causing a disruption of education, you have the right to free speech. So I can't just stand up in the middle of class and start yelling stuff, But if I want to produce something like this hurt feelings report and give it to my friends, I am completely within my rights. And so I think that's something that is good to consider. So here it is. I'm on oyez.org. This is a great website. I use it in government class by the Chicago-Kent College of Law. And they have all the Supreme Court cases and the decisions there. I'm going to put the link in the description. It's very good to know the law and to know your rights, because you know you have the right to free speech, but does that apply at school? Well, yes. Alright, so that's all I've got for my first video, the first episode of the Right Wing Report. Hope you enjoyed. I think it's a pretty entertaining story. I think it's a lot more entertaining if you were there, but I hope I was able to tell it and not be too long-winded, but I do tend to be a little bit long-winded. So I hope you enjoyed. Well, if you liked that video, I would encourage you to subscribe. I got more where that came from, and have a nice day.